Hello, hello, my love. I hope this finds you doing so well. This week, we are talking with Pam Covarrubias. I was recently on her podcast, and we just had such a fun conversation. We're both, and you'll hear this in this conversation, but we're both eldest-born Latina immigrants. She's from Mexico. I'm from Argentina, and there was just so much overlap in our story and our relationship to life, to our coaching, to our practice. I just had to have her on the show. So, Pam is a certified life and business coach, a certified clinical EFT practitioner, speaker, podcaster, grounded in liberation principles and trauma informed practices. Pam supports first generation women and femmes in the US, rejecting Calladita culture. She says it Calladita because she's Mexican. And don't worry, we're going to define that for you. She advocates against silencing and submission. As the host of the globally acclaimed podcast, Café con Pam, so coffee with Pam, Pam shares candid, thought provoking insights from diverse voices, offering valuable resources for mental health, business success, and community driven positive change. That was a really good bio. Good job writing that one, Pam. I had such a beautiful conversation with Pam, and I can't wait to share it with you. I hope you enjoy it. Take it away, us. Hello, Pam.
Hola, Bea. How are you?
Hola, I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. Me too. Don't really do a lot of interviews and conversations on the show, but your message and the work you do is just so powerful. I knew I needed to be another voice amplifying your incredible voice. So I'm grateful that you're here to share your work with everyone, all the feminist wellness listeners.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm glad we crossed each other's paths.
Isn't it so magical?
I know.
I
So
know,
fun.
it's really great. It's really great. So, I'd love it. I introduced you, but there's something else, that when we introduce ourselves, would you tell the good people who you are and what you do and what you're passionate about?
Oof. I think I am most passionate about optimizing my existence in a good way.
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
Not in like a hustle and grind, but how do I exist in the best way for
Huh.
this moment?
Huh. What does that mean? How do I exist in the best way?
I
Because I
know.
just heard every perfectionist listening being like, whoa,
Right.
right. So I
So that's
know
why it's
you're
in the best way
against
possible for
that.
me
Right,
in
right,
the
right. But
moment.
like, what does that mean?
Well, I think earlier before we started recording, we started talking about age. And
Yeah.
as I am getting closer to the fourth floor, I
Yeah.
am noticing my ADHD. Like it's well known that
Yeah.
the closer women get to 40, the more your ADHD starts acting up. And I'm
Or
noticing,
acting magically. Just gonna
yes,
like also
you
put
know,
that out there.
rebel
Magic. Yeah.
in all the ways possible.
All the ways.
And so I'm noticing how my energy shifts by the minute and how my focus also changes. And I'm choosing to listen to that versus
Mm.
and that's a great way for me to exist in the moment and give myself permission to not feel pressure by whatever the world expects of me,
Oh, that's beautiful.
which took a long time.
What are some of the things that helped you to get to there?
Burnout first.
I know, but
You know?
wait, but you're not like, listen, you gotta burn out. But are you
Right.
right?
No, you don't have to get to that extreme. I think what has helped me the most is to embrace silence.
Mm.
Because when I allow myself to, especially with someone with an ADHD brain, it's like
Right.
silence was a friend I had to meet
Yes.
and really get to know that friend
Yeah.
because I didn't know that friend. And
Yeah.
so, and I would say silence also is in my way. You know, for me, silence is I go for a walk
Right.
because my body needs to have some sort of fidgeting.
Listen. Of course.
in
Yeah, yeah,
some
yeah, yeah, yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And so embracing silence and allowing myself to truly listen what's within is
Mhm.
what led me to understanding, well, maybe you have this deadline that it's due in 2 hours, and maybe you give yourself 5 minutes to go for a walk,
Right. Right.
and that's what you need in the moment,
Right.
and honoring that.
So, so what I'm hearing that living your like in the best way possible, what I'm hearing is attunement to self. Am I hearing
Mm.
that right?
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah. And what I'm also hearing in there is letting go of meaning making and stories that don't serve you.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
I remember when I first started like doing like spiritual work and everyone was like, well, you need to meditate for like 400 hours a day. And I was like,
Right.
"Hmm." And it's really interesting because I'm married to a Tibetan Buddhist, right? Like Billy could meditate for 4,000 hours a day and like not even blink and just be like, whatever, I did a short one. And I'm like,
Right.
oh.
Yeah.
And we just laugh so much because we're the tortoise and the hare around here.
Mm.
And so she does things very slowly and meticulously. She breaks 0 dishes. She spills nothing. And I've done 45 things in the time it takes her to do one thing right.
Yes.
Right, but then I have to spend a half hour cleaning the floor. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And
Yes.
so what I'm hearing in there is some attunement to like, we are the mammal we are.
Yeah.
And some are tortoise and some are hare. Tortoise is not a mammal. I'm very well aware of this, my nerds, but stay with me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And you and
sometimes you
I are
have to go
buddies.
fast.
Listen, I always have to go fast.
I do too. I do too. I was working with one of my team members yesterday, and I have, like, my Mars. I don't know, we're not gonna talk about astrology,
We
but the
can
point is
go to there. We can always go there. Where's your Mars? Where's your Mars?
I don't remember, I would have to pull up my chart, but
Oh, okay, okay,
the
okay.
point
I'm
is that
pulling up
I work
mine.
really fast. And
Mm.
so one of my team members was like, I don't remember the exact situation, but she was like, "Hey, do you need this graphic?" And I literally had 5 minutes between phone calls, and I'm like, "I do need the graphic. Give me a second." And she was asking so she could create it,
Uh-huh.
and I said, "Of course." So I went and did it and then sent it to her, and I was like, "What about this?"
Right.
And she was like, "Oh, okay."
Oh,
I was opening
oh,
my computer and you
oh.
finished it,
Yep.
you know? Sometimes
Yeah.
we do have to go fast and sometimes we do go slow.
It's true. It's true. And I loved what you said about, I think you said something like silence was a friend I had to meet,
Mm,
which I both loved as a fellow ESL kid because it was such a traducción. Like it
yes.
really was. Like the sentence structure was so in Spanish, and I love
It's very
that
much in
because
Spanish.
we hear each other now. And like silence was a friend I also had to meet. With the word friend being, I both like got the opportunity to make that choice to tell that story.
Mm,
And in so doing, realized the friendship, the kinship, the support, the love that silence can offer.
yes.
And I love that silence and stillness don't have to go together.
They don't. And even spaciousness,
Ooh, say
you know,
more.
because for me, existing so much for a long time with the brain that was filled with ideas and to-do lists and
Yeah.
expectations as an
Yeah.
eldest daughter and responsibilities, whether it's self created or like
Mhm.
inherited or whatever.
Yep.
When I got to meet silence, I got to
Mm.
experience spaciousness and what it
Mm.
felt like to
Yeah.
truly tune into breath,
Yes.
you know?
Oh, I do.
And the
Yeah.
difference it makes.
Yeah. About ponele a year and a half, 2 years ago, I don't even remember. It doesn't matter. I had this weird upper right quadrant pain that made no sense. I got blood work, whatever. It made no sense. So what do? You get an MRI. If something doesn't make sense, make sure, it's not a
Right.
tumor. And so I did the dumb thing you're not supposed to do in an MRI. And I opened my eyes and I panicked. And I historically, like, I love, if my brain's too busy, I go to the back of the closet. Like, and I like the
Mhm.
coat closet, like the one with like lots of textiles and smells. And
Mhm.
I like get small. I love to go under the bed. Like I love
Mhm.
confined spaces, but whatever, this was not okay. And I have panicked very few times, but I panicked. And then for the last year and a half have like on airplanes, which like I spent my 20s working in Mexico, Nicaragua, Cuba, like traveling for work. I love planes. It's like my
Mm.
happy place is planes. And like that, this last summer, we traveled for a friend's wedding and I like got a little panicky when the door closed.
Mm.
I'm sharing this to say the work that I did recently in meditation was to connect with the expansiveness of the universe and the stars and the skies as the expansiveness within my body as a way to remind myself that I'm never actually enclosed,
Mm.
right? My physical animal might be in a small space, but I am never enclosed.
As expansive as can be.
As expansive as can be. And it was like this somatic shift that like changed everything. And I took like a puddle jumper, New York, Toronto a couple weeks ago, and I was like, fine,
Nice.
fine. And it was, yeah. So it is interesting to see what we push up against
Mhm.
and what I don't mean to be, too heavy, but what liberation is on the other side of that, no?
Mhm. And how many times is within, if not all?
Yeah. 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 For sure. I love
Because what
that.
did the MRI do? It told you nothing.
Nothing.
It was
Absolutely
when you
nothing.
went in
Yeah. Yeah.
that actually the answer came. That's where the magic is.
That is where the magic is. Pam, your work is also magic, which is why I invited you here. And if that was not one hell of a segue, I don't know what is. I
You know,
mean, that was
it's
like
how we
Oscar
flow.
level. Thank you. It is how we flow. Mira, your work is so incredible. The philosophy you bring to gathered to your work is so powerful. Would you please just pontificate? The floor is yours, Cariño.
Ooh.
Tell us all about this philosophy.
Gather. I love words. So
Yeah.
words are something I let me backtrack a little. ADHD, when I was
Bragging.
young,
Yes.
I didn't know it was ADHD. It was just you're anxious.
The secret gift. Yeah.
Right. You're anxious and you're depressed. And
Oh my.
so I had to deal
Yeah.
a lot through all of those various things. Of course,
Sure.
as you know, the
Yeah.
body keeps a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
I come from a family of alcoholics, so there's a lot. Eldest daughter, like there's so
Mm-hmm.
much layers.
It's
Right?
so many layers. And like, wait, but let's not sleep on that like eldest immigrant daughter. Cause
It's
like,
very real.
whoo, that is some realness, right?
It's very real.
The pressure, the stress, the like push away from being self and into this caretaking, parentified
Mm-hmm.
role, like plus add to ours, like every time you're watching a movie, ¿Qué dijo? ¿Qué dijo? ¿Qué dijo? Which means, what did they
Porque,
say?
right?
Like every 2 seconds.
Yes.
And we have to
Yeah.
be the translator. We have to be it's beyond
Everything
translator, it's interpreter, no?
is interpreter, is a parent, is the
Yeah.
bill payer, is a technology IT
Oh, the
person.
technology. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a
You
lot.
know?
I interrupted you, pero I
No, no,
like
no.
that.
It's real.
It's a huge point. So go on. So you were this kid with undiagnosed ADHD, undiagnosed eldest daughter syndrome. Ba, ba, da,
Right.
ba.
All
¿Qué
the things.
más? ¿Qué más?
Entonces, I grew up with a very Catholic grandmother and a brujo dad. So my dad was that, like, brujo is like the wizard.
Mm-hmm.
So in my upbringing was always very kind of like this oppositions that I had to experience because one was religious and control and the other one
Mm-hmm.
was freedom and acceptance and magic. And
Right.
so and this is his mother, you know. So it's like
Ooh, that's
mhm.
fuerte.
Mhm.
Wow.
It's really fun. So,
So,
long story short, I grew up with these parallels my whole life and in a way it was normal. It was normal to exist with magic. It was normal to exist with this element of control because that's in a form what religion is, in my
yeah.
opinion. And so Gather came once I got to that place of accepting my dualities
Mm,
embracing the spaciousness and bringing the magic into my work. And I mean, it's of course, there's lots of context behind it. But to get to the present moment, I've been playing a lot with launching programs, with doing so many things. And I was in this quest of being practical
mm,
because people seek the practical. And in my journey of looking to be practical, my essence was left. And so with
mm.
Gather, finally my body was like, you can't just exist in the practicality. You have to bring your right brain in and the magic and all the things. And so Gather is kind of like the culmination of my body of work and how I've been working on it and developing it for like a few decades now.
It's amazing, right? To be at this point in life
Hmm.
where we have a body of work. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
like it's kind of wild to be the grown-ups. I'm just gonna say that.
I know.
It's wild. So, mi amor, what is Gather? Because I know, but tell them.
See, Bueno, Gather is it's an annual program.
Yeah,
It's rooted in the 5 wounds of Calladita culture.
that's what I want to talk about. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
Calladita culture, I am very Mexican. Grew up in a, like I just said, in a very Catholic household.
Hmm.
And growing up, I kept hearing Calladita te ves más bonita, which
Oh,
means you look prettier when you're quiet. And with
ooh.
all the context we've been giving, eldest daughter, curious, ADHD, all the things, I had a lot of questions. I still ask a lot of questions.
Had a lot of questions.
You know, I feel like coaches, I'm like, were you
Listen,
like that kid that was told like
I
you're
think
asking a
we
lot of
were
questions?
all that kid,
Right?
all
I
of us.
know.
Uh-huh.
That's what I think all the coaches are. And so the 5 wounds of Gayeta culture are my body of work. They have come from coaching hundreds of first generation women and femmes, immigrants, lots of first time business owners, first time graduating college, first time doing all the things first. And it started with 7 principles. And then I realized you can unlearn principles, but in reality, what's happening is that we need to heal the wound
Right.
because, as you know, scar tissue is stronger than skin.
It's true.
And so when I realized this, I was trying to get a piercing, a re-pierced, and
Uh-huh.
my and the person was like, "We can't re-pierce the same hole because it's scarred. It's scar
Right.
tissue, and scar tissue is stronger than skin. And
Right.
so you would have to go around it because it's just the skin is just not going to let us do it."
Right.
And so that like I ended up not re-piercing anything. But that just gave me a huge lesson of how those wounds, once they are healed, they truly are, they just make us stronger.
Mm, yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the beauty of recognizing our wounds as like a catalyst. And I
Mhm.
love adding that, like, it's a little Buckminster Fuller, like tensegrity, right? Like adding that in
Yeah.
too. That's beautiful. Mira, for the not Latinas or not Hispanohablante, what does calladita mean?
Galleta means little quiet, basically. So
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah.
And it's a saying that we have in Spanish that is often told to women because women are
Yes.
socialized many ways in Latin America to be quiet, to be
Mhm.
submissive,
Mhm.
to, you know, whatever, gender roles.
Right.
And so anytime I talk about calladita culture, people from all over the world, they're like, well, we may not have that saying, but we've been
But
socialized this way.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so what I realized is that I created my body of work from my lived experience, which is a
Yeah.
Latina first gen immigrant eldest daughter experience,
Right.
and the wounds can apply to everyone.
Mhm.
And so there's 5 now. So we
Yeah.
started with 7 principles, now we have 5 wounds. And what I've realized is that we can over or undercompensate the wound. So there's alignment. Once we're in alignment, then that means that, you're not being pulled but you can be pulled in one direction or the other. So you want me to tell you the 5 wounds?
So much I want you to.
So we have the wound of silence that keeps us
Mhm.
quiet.
Yeah.
And this is when undercompensated, when you don't speak up at work, or when you don't ask for what you want. Overcompensated is when you're told you're too loud,
Mhm.
or you're oversharing, or you are like overpowering in a way
Mhm.
because you're
Yeah.
speaking too much. So
Yeah.
you could over or under. We have the wound of power. That one's the big one. So the wound of power keeps us stuck. The wound of
Mm.
power is the wound that where we basically give our power away. So eldest daughter is very much
Mhm.
ones that give her because we give everything and leave us behind. Like we become
Mm.
the caregivers, so we give our power away. We become the supporters, the translators, the interpreters, all the things we talked about.
Right.
We give our power away.
But we also can like power over the younger
Totally.
siblings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there can be sort of two iterations of the same wound, right? Like
Correct.
both in the same
So it's the over
animal,
under.
different person, listo, or
Correct.
with different people.
With
Yeah. Okay,
different
great.
people.
Right. So quiet,
3,
power, three.
silence power. Identity, the wound of identity,
Huh.
is the wound that many times, like, one basic story is, like, your parents wanted you to be a lawyer, so you became the lawyer, and you embraced the identity of the lawyer, but you forgot that you actually what you truly wanted was to be an artist and to paint. And
Yeah.
so we basically it's kinda like you give your power away, but your identity at the core is who do you choose based on whose expectations,
Right. Which
and you forget about
aligns
yourself.
right with emotional outsourcing. Right.
Mhm.
With my whole message is this: we recognize that it's safe. We're always seeking safety, belonging, and worth.
Yes.
And so we give away our identity and the story
Correct.
of who we are. Beautiful. Beautiful. All
Yes.
right. 4.
4 is the wind of commitment. So we
Huh.
overcommit, undercommit.
Yeah.
So the basically, I can do everything. I don't need help.
I'm fine.
Yep.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Everything's fine.
I don't need help. I'm fine. I'm
Uh-huh.
fine. Mhm.
I had a coaching call with a client and like literally, I don't know, I'm sure this happens to you. Like we got on the call and she saw me and she started bawling.
Oh yeah. All
And
the
I was
time.
like, what's happening?
Yep.
And she's like, I can't keep it together anymore. I've been keeping it together for
Oh,
everyone, you know?
right.
That's commitment.
Oh
So
yeah.
she has overcommitted when her capacity no longer allows
Yeah.
to sustain
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. 2 things came to mind. One, my dear friend Aisha Ophelia, who I love so much, made me cards that said had my like business cards that had my name and said, "Making women cry since 1979."
Yes.
And I feel like, yes, that just sums it up.
For
So,
sure.
anyway, my tia Vici, my favorite aunt, went and played rugby with the boys. She was probably like 10 or 12 and she was not allowed. And she got tackled really hard and broke her femur.
Ooh.
And so she limped home and hid in bed as though like, yeah, because she didn't want anyone to be mad at her.
Oh my God. That's
And I
commitment.
feel like, yeah, that's that commitment to like, don't upset anyone. I'm
Correct.
fine. And
Yes.
like to this day, you can't help her for trying. Like I lived at her house for like 2 months a couple years ago. And when I left, like I had to hide money around the house because she wouldn't let me pay as like a fully grown woman to like eat her
Because
food
she
for
got it.
2 months. I've got this. I'm fine.
Mhm.
She's like a retired school teacher in Mar del Plata, Argentina.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Hiding money.
That's wild.
Right, but so
Commitment.
typical, so
So
committing to
typical.
the bit. Like I
Mhm.
oof,
Mhm. And the
yeah,
last one is the
alright.
wind of worth, which we talk
Mm,
about
yeah,
belonging, safety, and worth. And so
yeah,
the wind of worth, that
yeah.
one is I mean, all of them are powerful. But basically, the wind of worth keeps us underpaid many times or also empty. So
Mm,
one of my clients, for example, she has achieved every single thing in the success book. So if we
Mhm.
were to give the success manual, she's checked it off and added 3
Right.
pages to it.
Right. Mhm.
You know, like,
Mhm.
done. And
Done.
when you ask her, "How full, how whole, how present are you?" It's not there
Yeah.
because she's still seeking for that worth, which
Yeah.
is it's the success checking off the list, but truly the worth is it's within.
Yeah.
And so in that case, she's over-aligned or
Right.
overcompensated. And to bring back to alignment is how do you find your inner self-worth?
Right.
Source
Right.
of the 5 wounds.
It's a really beautiful framework, and I think all of us can start to pause and see how being over and undercompensated on these 5 different wounds can take us out of presence in our own lives and out
100%.
of our authenticity so powerfully, no?
So much.
Yeah.
Especially identity, because many times I do a workshop on the 5 wounds, and people
Mm,
come to me afterwards, and they're like, "Literally, I just realized I haven't been myself
yeah.
for 30 years," or
Yeah, oh,
whatever,
yeah.
you
Whatever.
know?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah, it's super real. I mean, I hear that I'll have women in their 60s and 70s and anchored who say the same
Yeah.
thing of like, "Damn, wow, I just realized this."
Wild.
It's wild. And like how brave though, no?
Totally.
To like want to like at 50, 60, 70 be doing this introspective work
Mhm.
and continuing to grow and heal and create that, scar tissue
Yes.
stronger.
Scar tissue is stronger than skin.
Yep.
And giving themselves like, giving ourselves permission to say, "I'm just gonna go for it," instead of staying in the
Yeah.
familiar,
Yeah.
because, we know the brain goes back
Yeah.
to what feels familiar.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't killed us yet, right?
Right.
Right. And so, you and I are both very practical, immigrant eldest daughters. And so,
Yes.
for people listening who are like, this is philosophically very cool and stuff, my whole thing is sharing remedies, right? How can we actually actionably start to change this? Where would you recommend people start?
Ooh,
Yeah.
I think mm, well, I mean, I would say with what I started, which is how could you create spaciousness?
People don't understand that till they do. So,
Mm,
let's like really break it all the way down. So, how do you define spaciousness? How do you know you don't have it? What does it feel like to have it? Like, ¿me entiendes?
mhm.
Like, let's go like super básico because it is such a big conceptual thing. And I think if you'd asked me 20 years ago if I had spaciousness, I kind of would have looked at you like you had 16 heads and been like,
Right.
I don't know. I have a master's in public health. I don't know. Is that
What
spacious?
language are you
Like,
speaking? Yeah.
hey, so let's get like, yeah,
Yeah. So I think the first step is to choose to take an intentional pause. And an intentional pause, what does that look like for you? And what feels good? And I think the first step is to understand feeling because we exist in our head so much. The world invites so much thinking. And so how do we get in the body to feel? And it could
right,
be as simple as wash your hands and take 15, 20 seconds to wash your hands and feel the water in your
right,
hands.
right. Yeah.
Like, that's a very simple exercise.
Right. So I hear you saying one of the first steps to spaciousness is moment to moment awareness.
Mhm.
Yeah. And stepping into practical mindfulness.
I like that,
Yeah. Practical
practical
mindfulness.
mindfulness.
Yeah. It's kind of my jam, right? Because I too love the philosophical thinking. And at the end of the day, your girl's a nurse. Like, what do I do
Let's give the
Wednesday
1, 2, 3.
morning? Let's go. Let's go.
Yes.
Okay. So that moment to moment, washing your hands, feeling the texture of the water, smelling the soap, right? The things we can do
You do every
while,
day.
yeah, but also like while meeting the work deadline and making sure the kids are
Totally.
fed and the dog, ba, 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 ba,
Mhm.
slowing down the hand washing. ¿Qué más?
Think about the daily rituals that we already have. Brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
So, how could you invite moments of pleasure in brushing your teeth?
Oh, so not just mindfulness, but pleasure.
Yeah, because it's a form of that's how we can feel and start
Right.
connecting back to the body.
Beautiful.
So,
Yeah.
something we already do every day. Washing your hair, I used to despise washing my hair. I have curly hair. It's
Yeah.
like a whole ensemble to like
It's a whole
hair wash
process.
day. It's
It's a
like
lot. It's a
I have to
lot.
plan it out, you know?
Listen, also, because this takes mine takes like hours to dry,
Yeah.
right? It's 3 o'clock right now, and I washed it. We
Still
went
wet.
to boxing this morning, and yeah, I think I washed my hair at like 10 and it's still wet in the middle. That's fun. Right. So changing the story.
Change the story. How could you take that moment that could be a form to create space
Right.
to feel pleasure and to enjoy it? How could you
Okay.
make it enjoyable?
So how are you defining spaciousness?
So I'm spaciousness, I define it with presence. How could you bring
Mm,
presence
yeah.
without thinking about what you didn't do and thinking
Right.
about what you need to do?
Yeah.
How
So
could you
being in the here
exist?
and now. Yeah.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
And spaciousness could be 1 minute,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
tap. I'm an EFT practitioner. And
Okay.
so I sometimes give myself spaciousness by doing one full round of a tapping
Mm,
sequence.
yeah.
It takes 30 seconds.
Right. I mean, it makes so much sense, right? These five wounds, like any habitual story, it's just a heuristic, right? It's just a shortcut in the brain. It's the body's and the brain's way of saying brain, spinal cord, neurons, these are the parts of our nervous system. It's just our nervous system and our body saying, I need, I don't feel safe. I don't feel okay. I feel worried. Things don't feel okay. Like I'm in discomfort. I want that to end.
Mhm.
So we go to the patterning around these wounds. And so I'm hearing you say that when we come back into presence, into mindfulness, we can tap into our own expansive capacity to bring in spaciousness where perhaps agency is within spaciousness. Right.
Totally.
In my world, I talk, yeah, all the time about how choicefulness is the way to rewrite our habits. And so,
Totally.
whether we're talking about the three essential human needs and emotional outsourcing, or these five wounds that keep us quiet to ourself and
Mm.
quiet in the world, creating that space to make a choice is key.
Mhm.
Right? Because
Mhm.
sometimes we choose the old habit intentionally for physical safety, for emotional safety, because when we balance actually being ourselves or going with this particular flow, we'll say, I'll just be myself with my friends. And right now, I'm just going to say, si, senora to my grandmother. We're just going to move on and it's going to be fine. It's
Right.
an active choice we might make.
Totally.
Yeah. But we get to make that choice. And we
And
make the
it creates
choice
awareness.
creates awareness, right? And awareness creates the capacity to make choices.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. What else would you like to add? Anything you haven't had a chance to say?
So we do a lot of inner niña work, inner
Yes.
child.
Yeah.
I'm trained on a another form of tapping that allows us to go into the subconscious brain and have a conversation with our inner niña, our inner child version of ourselves, and see what support. The only exit, not the only, but basically what we do is we ask that version, "What support do you need?"
Yes. Yeah.
And present self, as we are present, then, I mean, we've gone through so much, right? Like,
Mm,
version of us, we've
yeah.
already dealt with so many things. So we can go back to that 6-year-old and say, well, how could I show up better for you?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so then
Beautiful.
that younger version can say, oh, well, I just need you to tell me I'm beautiful.
Mm,
I just need
yeah.
you to tell me I'm enough. I just need you to tell me my voice is valid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
capacity that we create with spaciousness allows us to get connected to the body.
So beautiful. Oh, Pam, you're doing such amazing work. I am so grateful that you're out in the
Thank you.
world doing this work, that you came here to share it with us. I know everyone listening wants to hear more about how to work with you, about your podcast. Will you give them all the goods, where to find you?
Yes. So I have a podcast that Bea was on. And
Yay!
so you can find the episode. It's cafeconpam.com, coffee with Pam in Spanish, cafeconpam.com. And you can find all the links, all the episode notes in there at Cafe Con Pan Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. My body of work is already on there. So it's super easy, cafeconpam.com.
Amazing. And I'll put a link on my own show notes so you can find that easily as well. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here,
you so
Pam. You are
much.
so special, and I'm so grateful to be in each other's worlds.
Well, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. And it got you thinking, because it got me thinking, how are these five wounds showing up in my life? Where am I really enacting them? Where am I over and under? And what would coming into more coherence with self really look like? And that's what we talk about every week here on the Feminist Wellness Podcast, is tapping into the attunement and coherence with ourselves. So I know you've got the tools. I know you know how to start doing this powerful work. And if you're like, yeah, but I would like my little handheld, come and join me in Anchored. We are starting a new group in the new year. I'd love to have you with us. victoriaalbino.com/anchored. All right, let's do what we do. Gentle hand on your heart should you feel so moved. And remember, you are safe. You are held. You are loved. And when one of us heals, we help heal the world. Be well, my beauty. I'll talk to you soon.